Good afternoon, everyone. We are Team Voyage. We are creating virtual field trip using Google Daydream. Here's our team members, and Scott and Heather are our advisors. Our project is to explore collaborative VR in classroom setting. Collaboration to us isn't necessarily making everyone interact with the same object at the same time, but more like us creating a sense of shared presence among students and teachers. We want to identify and solve problems arising from putting a whole classroom in the VR by creating immersive experience with a group activity. We choose a biome as a subject, specifically deciduous forest. Here's our design pillars: imparting experiential learning and creating a sense of shared presence, and keep it simple for both to us and to teachers, and maximize research outcomes. Since we are an exploratory team, we value our research. We want to create a new and interesting thing to push research even further rather than refining small features for a finished product. Here's our experience flow. VR experience is important, but it's not only part of our project. Our goal is to deploy entire experience flow in the classroom. First, the teacher will prepare Google Daydream and enter students' name in the VR. And after students wear Google Daydream, they get into the VR and select their names and avatar colors, and they get into the virtual staging environment, which bridges the gap between real classroom and the virtual environment. And then teacher will start the experience, and then teacher will give a small description and task what they need to do. And then students can explore the environment. They can do environment interaction, exploration, and scavenger hunt. And they get back to the virtual staging environment and exit from the VR and have a discussion about what they have learned and seen from the environment. And now Julian will talk more about our experience.
Thank you, Nayan. So we know that class time can be pretty short, so we want the setup time to be short as well. For the students, all they need to do is find their name and then a color that they want their avatar to be, and they're in our experience. Once inside, they can explore our environment by going to different teleportation pads, and the other students will be able to see them move in real time. They'll also be able to see their hands as it's connected to their controllers. We still want the teachers to have full control over the experience, as we know it can be pretty difficult to control 20 students all in VR headsets, so we implemented a couple of things. One, the teacher is actually on an iPad as opposed to in VR with the students. We think this will help because the teacher will be able to monitor the students both in the physical space along with in the virtual space. We also added 2 features to grab the students' attention. One is a pause feature, so when paused, students can no longer interact with or teleport to anything in the environment, and a pop-up bubble appears in front of their head to distract them from the stuff around them. We also have a reset feature, so wherever a student is in the environment, they'll be teleported back to the initial starting point. Everything in the environment is clickable, and when you click on it, a content blurb will appear that will have more information about that specific piece of content. The students will need to use this information in order to solve scavenger hunts. And as I just said, the group activity we'll be focusing on is scavenger hunts. What we plan to do is to divide the students into 3 teams of around 5 or 6. Each team will having their own separate scavenger hunt. The clues will have classroom vocabulary, so instead of saying something like find the wolf, it'll be find 3 apex predators, one of which is the wolf. We also want to gear these clues more towards problem solving than find this random thing or find that random thing. Lastly, once out of the VR headset, since each team does have a different scavenger hunt, we're going to encourage the students to talk about what they saw and what they learned, so that other students that may not necessarily have learned the same things get that information as well. For the scavenger hunt itself, if a student thinks that they've found the object the scavenger hunt is referring to, they can use our flag tool and mark an object. If it's correct, a little diamond in the same color of that particular team will appear above the object. This is viewable to all students, even those not on the same team, to hopefully elicit a sense of competition. If I see that another team has a lot more diamonds than I do, I might want to step my game up. Now Nikki will talk to us about art.
Thank you, Julian. So one of our biggest piece of feedback from coders was that we need to bridge the gap between our low-poly art style and the realistic thing it was supposed to represent, because we want to preserve the educational value. Google Pixel has limited capability, and it can only hold about 75K triangles within a viewport, which is very low, but we have a large number of trees in the scene. So after quarters, we experimented and found some tricks to make things work. First, we will put detailed texture map at the bottom and also on the trunk of the tree, which is usually the angles people see a tree in the forest. And then we will make leaf fall from the tree to the ground. And then you can make the connection between these two, which is usually the way people use to identify a tree in real life. With similar idea, we have made our animals and plants. By now, we have finished all the assets in our asset list, including the key animals and key plants in the deciduous forest biome. To build our scene, we have our own art pipeline. First, we will design a full rough map of the whole experience and divide it into sections. Each section will have its own asset list. After that, we will design a more detailed top view along with the concept art from the viewpoint of the guest. We will also include the elevation map, which shows more clearly how landscape look in the experience. After that, we put everything in Maya and build the scene. This is the one of the view from our experience. This is a path to the great tree, and by now we have a full spring map ready to be explored. Now Rajiv will talk more about playtest.
Thank you, Nikki. Another major piece of feedback that we got from quarters was to consider the difficulty of actually getting the entire classroom into the headsets and successfully deploying our experience flow. To solve this, we conducted 2 playtest sessions with the Cornell School with the 7th grade classroom, one with a class of 20 and the other a class of 16. We successfully deployed our experience flow by putting the entire class into one area of our deciduous forest. We obtained multiple learnings from this playtest and also made a couple of feature changes based on it. One thing we noticed was that the teacher was finding it very hard to manage all the notifications from the students. Hence, we implemented a feature wherein when the student requests for a help from a teacher, the teacher could click on the notification and immediately zoom to the student's location in the virtual space to see what they're looking at. We also noticed that the teacher was using our experience on the iPad more as a tool. We wanted to create more such tools to empower the teachers. For example, the camera feature here could be used by the teacher to potentially create multiple custom assignments for the students. Here are a few other interesting observations that came out of the playtests. As soon as the students put on their Daydream headsets, they instinctively started waving at each other using their controllers. This very small interaction proved to be immensely satisfying for them. Regardless of where the students were in the physical space, as soon as they put on their headsets, they immediately started communicating with the avatars nearest to each other in the virtual space. Initially, we had envisioned an experience wherein the teacher would be at the front of the classroom and the students at their respective places. However, it turned out that the teacher liked to move around the class using their iPads and interact with the students much more to learn what they're seeing and doing inside of the VR. One of the things that came up during the playtest was that the teacher wanted to announce something to the entire class, but the class wasn't paying attention at all because they were too immersed in the experience to actually listen to the teacher. So the teacher clicked on the pause button on the iPad and immediately the entire class turned silent. Also, one of the first reactions of the teacher on seeing the iPad controls was that it was very simple and intuitive. So the teacher controls seemed to work really well. Now, over to Sharon to talk about what's next for our project.
Thank you, Rajiv. So here are a few things that we would be focusing on for the remaining part of the semester. Firstly, we want to follow a new design goal of maximizing research outcomes. We as a team were very surprised of how much we learned by the playtest we did at Cornell School. That's why we believe we should maximize on these learnings rather than polishing certain smaller features of our experience. For example, we would like to spend time iterating our scavenger hunt group activity, as that also relates to the collaboration part of our project, as compared to polishing the camera feature, which already seems to be working pretty well. We have already scheduled multiple playtests in the coming weeks to iterate on our experience. We plan on adding an autumn season to the forest so that the students can see how the environment around them changes with time. And lastly, we would like to publish all of our research in the form of a paper or a talk. However, this would be our plan after the end of the semester. So what does success mean for our project? First, we want to identify and solve as many problems as possible that are related to having the entire classroom in VR at the same time. Secondly, we want to successfully deploy our experience with 2 seasons at Cornell School. And lastly, we want to purposefully engage the students so that they can have fun as well as learn from the deciduous forest biome that we have created for them. As this is the first time that we are doing a project with the Daydream, Team Curiouser and ourselves have been sharing our learnings on the ETC Daydream wiki page, and we will continue to do so. So in summary, we are Project Voyage, and we are creating a collaborative VR experience for grade 7 classrooms. Thank you, and we are now open for questions. Yeah. Oh, Ralph.
So how many students again?
So we can support up to 30. We have tried 20 and 16. Yeah.
So what is the mechanism that the student doesn't interact with it, like kind of just goes off and just kind of hides? Is there a way for the teacher to notice that and get that person involved? And how is that? How do they do that?
So one, the camera view is exaggerated, so the whole avatar moves, not just the face. So that way the teacher, even from a distance, can see if the student is wearing the headset or not. Secondly, at all times, teacher can see where each student is. So for a long time, if a student is at a particular position, he or she can notice that. And lastly, teacher is on an iPad, so she can also physically see what the students are doing in the virtual space as well.
There's also, I mean, just to add on to that, we have a student list. So like if there is a student that is not actually in the experience, you'll be able to tell because there won't be the correct amount of students on the list.
So to help with your research, what sort of analytics did you build in? Like do you have player maps to see where they're walking and that sort of thing?
So we have a list of things that we want to add. For now, we haven't included it in the experience, but we do take screenshots and stuff to know. Like we make notes during our playtest, but when we go again, we'll have all that inbuilt into our experience. Yeah, Maya?
It's great work, and I know the thing I'm going to encourage you to do might be difficult, but you have fantastic artistic talents on your team, and maybe think of other ways to approach the local poly. Some studies in the way to do the environment, so that you can use the talent you have. Look how beautiful your background is. It's better than what it looks like in the 3D environment. So if there's something where you can translate that kind of quality into the 3D environment, that'll be fantastic.
Yeah. So thank you, Maya. We're definitely pushing our boundaries on how to best utilize the constraints of the Daydream. Nikki and Nayan are continuously trying to push the boundaries there, and hopefully by the end of the semester, we'll have something better.
Also, on top of that, I'd encourage you to come and actually go inside the experience and play test it, because it's very different on this flat screen versus actually being in there. And also, even just today, I think Nikki implemented like shadows instantly so there's all this kind of stuff that we're also still continuing to do.
I have one more. What surprised you the most so far over the course of the semester?
Firstly, we are pleasantly surprised that we could support 20 kids in VR at the same time. Secondly, so early on, we wanted to build this 3-season experience and focus on the VR experience, but the amount of things that we learned, like how the teacher interacts with this tool, she saw this less as an experience, saw this more as a tool to interact with the kids and kind of facilitate discussion. So looking at all that, we as a team feel that we should try to incorporate many such features into our experience so that we can maximize on those learnings rather than just making a 3-season experience in VR that what we initially had planned.
I'm going to say, is there audio?
So,
Yeah. As of right now, no-ish. There's like a background track, but we're mainly muting it because we're testing with kids, so we want to do this other kind of stuff. What we want to do is have spatialized sound stuff. So like if you're by the pond, there would be pond noises. If you're by the tree, bird noises, stuff like that. But again, it's kind of awkward when you're testing with 20 people. So we're trying to figure out, that's one of our big questions. Like, how are we going to integrate that well?
All right, thanks, team.